This is the Skoda Karoq, and with a combination of Skoda's simply clever features, some really strong drivetrains and underpinnings, and styling that stands out for all the right reasons, it's one of my favourite mid-size SUVs. But Skoda has just treated it to a 2022 midlife update. Up front, it's had a light facelift with a new front bumper redesign, and all LED headlights look a little bit different now too. And it's the same story at the back end, where you've got a redesigned taillight cluster and slightly different plastic body panels. And with the update, Skoda says it's crammed in an extra $4,000 worth of equipment included in the price. This version is for now the flagship. It's called the Sport line, and as the name suggests, it's the sportiest version. Under the bonnet, it has a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine, the EA888, which is in virtually everything in the Audi Volkswagen group now, and it works beautifully under the bonnet of the Karoq Sport line as well. 140 kilowatts paired to a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission and all-wheel drive, and the combination is a personality and character which helps you very quickly forget this is a mid-size SUV. Only a few years ago, this is the behaviour and nature I would expect from a proper little hot hatch. Banging into sport mode and manual, and I can flick down a couple gears and get that strong 4-cylinder turbo engine singing. Makes quite a nice noise as well. I don't suspect it's that awful augmented sound that comes through synthetically through the stereo system. That sounds like all real induction and exhaust, and I rather like it. Oh yes, really eager response as well. Once you're in gear and moving, there's zero turbo lag when you open the taps, and a real confidence to that chassis. I don't really feel in these conditions I need the traction in a straight line of all-wheel drive, but it's nice to know if I hit a couple of these patches of unexpected water, and strong brakes as well. I'm rolling on 19-inch wheels here with low-profile tyres, plenty of grip, no concerns whatsoever. And there's a really nice pliable nature to the chassis. Coming through this corner, there's some really nasty potholes mid-bump, but it sorts it all out. It's got adaptive chassis technology, which depending on the mode, I can flick through several into sport, and that just tightens everything up. I can feel ever so slightly more sensitivity through the steering, and a little more resistance to roll through corners. Just a general sense of stability is increased across the board, and a little bit more engine noise. Okay, so there is a bit of augmented sound coming through. I can forgive it that maybe. But if I keep flicking through the driving modes, I get into a comfort mode, and that's really where this car surprised me the most. Even on some of these dodgy surfaces, it's taken on a completely different personality. The revs drop away, the cabin is quiet despite those low profile short sidewall tyres, and once again I feel like I'm in a different car again. I don't want to say this car is, the multi-personality, the one car that does it all, because that line's been used way too much, but it does have way more facets and sides to its character and nature than I was expecting. Inside, as you might expect from a Skoda, the cabin is a great place to be. I've got excellent soft touch materials everywhere, struggling to find anything I don't like. Bit too much piano black, as they call it, or gloss black, or fingerprint attraction surface, as I prefer to call it. Other than that, it's a really, really premium interior. I'm sitting on these sport seats, which are unique to the Sport line. It just goes to show that you don't need leather to make a cabin feel special. This fabric feels just fine, and the quilting and highlighted stitching makes it feel a little bit more special. There's so much technology. I've got a heated steering wheel with this lovely pricked leather finish. I've got heated front seats, heated rear seats. Down here I've got a fully digital driver instrument cluster, which you'll find proliferating a lot of Skoda, Audi and Volkswagen hardware these days. And a really impressive central touchscreen. Standard, that is 8 inches, but in this particular version it's grown to 9.2 because someone has optioned this car with the travel pack, which brings me to one of my only qualms, that is, you don't get navigation as standard in this car. You might argue that's not such a problem because everyone has a smartphone these days, but for those days you want to just jump in and hit your favourite destination or just go home, native navigation is the way to go, and I'll always appreciate that in a car. While we're on the subject of options, panoramic sunroof, that'll cost you another $1,900, but beyond that, this car is as it comes out of the box, and to me, that is a huge amount of gear for a standard price. Skoda is carefully but gradually moving away from its kind of bargain basement proposition and into more premium territory, and a car like this advances that cause very effectively. But nonetheless, the Sport line will cost you $49,990, which is a bit of a bargain when you look at what you're getting for the cash. Its levels of technology have taken a good incremental step up. The styling is excellent and really aligns nicely with some of its bigger siblings, like the Karoq Sport line. But if you don't feel this is quite the right fit for you, then there is another option. At under $50,000, the Skoda Karoq Sport line is a lot of mid-size SUV for your cash. But with the update, there's a second option, and this costs less than $43,000. It's called the Skoda Karoq Style, and it costs $42,990. So I know what the first thing you're thinking is, what don't you get for the $7,000 worth of savings? Well, first of all, under its bonnet, while it still gets a 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine, it's 1.4 litres, not 2 litres. And that means power is down to 110 kilowatts, while torque is down to 250. But the first thing I noticed when getting in this car on some decent roads like this is how the power difference and performance margin is not quite as big as I was expecting. And that's because this car is not all-wheel drive, it's front-wheel drive, so it's carrying around a whole load less prop shafts and differentials, and it's a lot lighter. So about town, it actually has a bit more of a playful, light and chuckable nature to it. Out on some of these bigger, more grown-up roads, you do start to notice its slightly short-leggedness. But something that really helps is it has a different transmission as well. While the Sportline gets a 7-speed dual clutch, which is regarded as slightly more sporty, this gets an 8-speed, more conventional automatic. Now, while it might not be quite as sporty in its nature, it's got one more gear ratio in there, and that means they can bunch all the ratios a bit closer together and perhaps keep the engine in its sweet spot a little bit easier. You don't get this as standard because this car has been optioned up with the premium pack, which means I get a sportier steering wheel, and then I get paddle shifters as well, which means I can bring it into sport mode or manual mode and pick the gears for myself, and that again helps that power and torque situation. On more enjoyable roads like this, it actually becomes even more involving. I'm thinking a little bit more where to keep the engine, whether to use that nice torque low down or rev it all out to the 6,000 rev line and use all that power. It also gets different driving modes. I'm going to pop it into sport, holds the revs a little bit higher, I don't have to work quite so hard with the gearbox. The steering, I think, gets just a little bit more sensation and weight, but in all the modes there's nothing lacking from the steering and the way this car feels and handles on the road. For the car that is below the sportiest variant, I'm actually really surprised how much fun this is to pilot on decent roads like this. There's a really good resistance to roll, but just like pretty much everything you drive on Volkswagen Group's MQB Evo platform, you don't have to muck around with driving modes and chassis settings. It's just permanently in this nice balance of cruising comfort, or if you're surprised by good roads like this, it's ready to go. 1 minute this car is returning a real sporty nature and character and resisting roll through corners with really good body control, and the next minute, quite by accident, I found a really dreadful road that is full of potholes thanks to New South Wales' terrible weather we've had lately. But that's showing another side to this car's character and nature which I really like. It's rolling on smaller 18-inch wheels, not the 19s that the Sportline gets, and that copes so much better with potholes and imperfections in the road. But that's paired with that brilliant chassis for a ride that honestly is probably best in class. As with any Skoda, you have a number of options available to you if you're not happy with the off-the-shelf level of specification, and this car has had the premium pack thrown at it, which gives me these lovely, more sporty and part leather clad seats with electric adjustment for both the front seats. I've got a different sporty steering wheel, very similar to the one in the Sportline, with heating for my hands, which is lovely on a cold Blue Mountains day like today. but it does add a significant chunk to the bottom line. It'll cost you nearly 11 grand. For what it's worth, I actually really like the standard seats. I think their cloth manages to be premium without feeling cheap, but also doesn't add anything to the bottom line. For me, it would be the one to go for in standard trim. But there's one more important practical consideration between the Style and the Sport line. The Sport line doesn't get VarioFlex rear seats, and what they enable you to do is not just fold the rear seat down, they also roll forward, but if you find that's still not enough room, you can actually remove that second row of seating altogether, which turns the Karoq into a little van. I think until now, one of my favourite solutions to maximising rear seat space and boot space is Honda's Magic seats, which do a clever sort of folding business, but there's not many cars out there that you can actually remove the seats entirely, and it makes it a little bit like the Yeti. But perhaps my favourite thing about the entry-level Style is it gets pretty much all the technology that the Sport line gets. This beautiful digital virtual cockpit for my driver's instruments down here, that's standard, and I can flick through the various customization modes to have full screen navigation, or a more sporty just tachometer and speedometer according to how you want to drive from any particular day to the next. I also get the same 8-inch touchscreen down here, although this one has been spec'd up optionally to the 9.2. I've got adaptive cruise control, a really clear reverse camera with manoeuvring aids, blind spot detection, lane keep assistance, loads of safety tech. All that is standard in the most affordable Style. I'm so pleased I've had a chance to drive both the new variants in the updated Karoq range because they have such completely different personalities. The Sport line is definitely the more sportier of the siblings, hence the name. It's got genuine hot hatch performance, but a sure-footedness of an all-wheel drive system and an all-round more focused nature, together with the looks so that your neighbours know it. But honestly, the surprise of the day has been this car, the Style. Not only does it represent better value for money in my mind, it doesn't really compromise much in the way of driving reward. It's not as fast, 0 to 100, can't compare with the 7.3 0 to 100 time of the Sport line, but it's still got adequate performance and it makes you work a little bit harder for the fun. Regardless of which variant is a better fit for you, the Skoda Karoq range has never been better positioned, and if you're in the market for a mid-size SUV that packs in tons of value for money, you should definitely get down to your Skoda dealership and drive not just one variant, but both.